So away we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. This is, of course, Coffee Talk, getting ready to talk about some of what is going on in the world today, news and otherwise. And you can find me, if you're listening and not watching, you can find me on YouTube, Coffee Talk, or Prepper University on YouTube, or more specifically at Coffee Talk Chat, or excuse me, no, at Coffee Talk Live, and it's at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, as well as Fistful of Radio. That is fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon as we get ready to dive in. And of course, for those of you who are listening and not watching, I do try to read as many of the comments as is practical so that you can follow along with the conversation for those who are able to join us live on the YouTube portion. I see Delo is here, Fluke Man, Helter is here, Dragon, and Delo says, yeah, thumbs up. Yeah, indeed, please do. If you're able to, provide a thumbs up. Booger is here. Delo says no ads. Oh, that's not a good sign. Actually, if there's no ads running, that means that I'm being scrutinized by ScrewTube already. Chris Severin is here. Deanna is here. Who else? Ragnar Thor's Hammer, Urban Angst, and Cruising made it today so far. Those are the people that have chosen to acknowledge on the live portion from YouTube, letting me know that they are present and accounted for, as it were. No cat today. No cat sitting in the chair today. There is a cat in the room, but not where you can see it. It is raining outside, and keeping in mind that most of these are formerly outdoor animals or abandoned animals, when it rains, they freak out. And so a lot of them are hiding. And Chris says, I got an ad before being let in. Which are you on? Are you on Prepper University, or are you on Coffee Talk? Because it could be one of the channels is having a hard time and not the other, which was demonstrated in the video I did. Do they scrutinize your channel or the content? I put that up on both channels, and hardly anybody has seen those videos, especially on Prepper University. I don't even think there's 400 views on it. Again, 65,000 subscribers. I can't manage 400 views on a video. Something is wrong. I see Donna is here. Nature Nerd has joined us. And he says Prepper University got ads, and Chris says Prepper U. So I'm wondering if the Coffee Talk is the one that's being hammered, as it were. Because, every little bit helps. I mean, I probably get like 2 cents when an ad runs, but I'll take it. I'll take every little bit. Every little bit helps. What are you going to do? As we get ready to dive into the actual news. And some of you may have seen snippets from, they had the GOP debate just recently, which Vivek Ramaswamy actually swept it. He did a great job on the debate, and he called out a lot of the BS and a lot of the lies and a lot of the propaganda. Nature Nerd says, doesn't Rumble have ads? I believe that they do, but Rumble is a dead platform. I don't care unless you're Russell Brand. Nobody's watching anything on Rumble. Because I do mirror to Rumble. Every video probably gets like 5 views, and if there is an ad, it's so negligible. I think in all the months I've been on Rumble, I've earned 3 cents. I kid you not. I think it's like literally 3 cents. So because there's nobody there, it's a mediocre platform that's buggy. It's hard to load things to it. Nobody is there to watch, anyways. So I don't know. Gary Smith has joined us. Glad you could make it today, as more people are chiming in. But this is who is this website? Mediaite is coming up. And one more person greeting, and that is Erikel, has popped in today. As we get the article open, NBC exposed, it says. Because again, Ramaswamy, and I don't know, Ramaswamy from Adam, and I've heard the argument that a lot of people think that he is a plant, that he's in bed with Soros and all of this other stuff. And show me a politician who isn't, a high-ranking politician or official who isn't. If he did win, as long as he does what he says, I don't even care at this point who he took money from 20 years ago or whatever. Bingo is here. Thanks for joining us today, Bingo. And Deanna says, sometimes I watch on Rumble a video will have mostly thumbs down, only a few views mostly. Yeah, and they're bitter on Rumble too. The viewers are bitter. So I don't even know what to say about it. But here we go. NBC exposed itself with overzealous fact checks of GOP candidates. He called out also, why have we got like really extremely left-leaning people moderating this in the first place? The GOP is a laughing stock, and Ramaswamy's correct. He called it out. NBC News entrusted a fact-checking team with reviewing the assertions of Republican candidates at the primary debate hosted by the network on Wednesday night. It did not go well. As a journalistic genre, fact-checking works best when it's focused on evaluating falsifiable statements. Under those circumstances, it is a valuable service. Yeah, I've frequently picked apart fact-checking on this channel when I've done, especially on these live portions when I do the podcasting. It's not hard to pick apart fact-checking because they are almost always overzealous, and they try to tie things together that don't go together, or they take something out of context to pretend like something is false or mostly false. Anyways, outright falsehood should be corrected, and context is often integral in to understand a given issue. But all too often, we see fact checkers deploy selective arguments about context as an ideological cudgel. True. Thereby becoming a source of misinformation rather than a means of combating it. And NBC fell hopelessly into those well-trod traps. In one particularly egregious instance, its exclusive editor of investigation, Peter Klein, attempted to downplay Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' efforts to evacuate Americans from Israel last month. Quote, I sent planes over to Israel and brought back over 700 people to safety, declared DeSantis on the debate stage. Not so fast, shot back Klein. This is half true, he argues. DeSantis signed an executive order that allowed the Florida Division of Emergency Management to pay for Americans in Israel to fly back to the U.S., but the flights were organized by a nonprofit, and DeSantis' primary role was to fund the flights. So he's saying it's false because DeSantis arranged to pay for it instead of literally flying them back himself. One gets the impression Klein would have only given his elusive approval to the statement had DeSantis personally flown aircraft to and from Israel. Exactly. And that's why I pick apart fact-checking on a lot of these discussions, because this is what they do. Okay, so he literally didn't fly them back and forth himself. He arranged for it, he signed it off, and he made sure it was paid for to help people escape, and they landed in Florida. He did that. He did more than Biden's administration has done to get people, American citizens, out of that country during the start of that conflict. And yeah, that is an accomplishment. I'll give him that. But to sit there and try to downplay that and pretend like it's false or mostly false because his mention of it, DeSantis's mention of it, was somewhat figurative, is dirty pool. And then Urban says, ain't no joke about the cat videos. Set up a theme playpen, stick the 24-hour camera to record all the action, change up the themes regularly. Coffee cat cam. It's ludicrous, but expect way more views. Yeah, you know what? If I did something like that, I'd probably get a mountain of views. And I think he's making a reference, Urban, correct me if I'm wrong, to what I just mentioned about the video, because that I did. Do they target your content or the channel, and I put that up on both Coffee Talk and Prepper University, and hardly anybody's seen it. Again, Prepper University, I don't even think it's broken 400 views so far, and it's been several days, and that's a platform with 65,000 subscribers. There's really no explanation other than that the platform is being shadow banned. But if I did something like that, if I set up a little kitty pen, newborn kittens live camera, I would probably be raking in the dough, as it were, as it were. But again, I'm just happy to see, even though it's Mediaite, and I don't even know who Mediaite is. It's nice to see an actual news agency calling out that the fact checkers in the industry for mainstream media are not honest, that they're deceptive in the way that they fact check things, that they try to make people look bad on purpose, or try to act like something isn't true. Like how and I did this one a couple of weeks ago. It was for AOC fact checking that she was called out for being a millionaire, and they said that that was false because according to their research of her explanation on her personal webpage was that she only has a total net worth of like $72,000, and I was able to unravel that very quickly. She is a millionaire. That was a lie, but they're covering for her. Nature Nerd says Nikki Haley is Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels. They're 5-inch heels actually. Yeah. And Urban says, okay, serious comment now regarding the Americans who are trapped in Gaza. No, they are not. They can make their way to the southern Rafah border, cross into Egypt, and make their own way home. How easy do you think that will be? Egypt's not letting anybody in. Well, they're not letting any Palestinians in. Egypt doesn't want Palestinians in. I don't know about Americans, but I don't know if you got some like flabby American tourist, how easy do you think it's going to be for them to do that? Just throwing that out there. You're talking about Americans who them going up a flight of stairs because they couldn't get in the elevator is a heart attack experience. And Spectre has made it today. Thanks for joining us, Spectre. Now, this is something I wanted to talk about. It's another under the radar sort of a story because it's suspicious to me. It's very suspicious to me, and it's reminiscent to me of the 5 Capitol Police who committed suicide before they were able to testify in court about January 6th. 5 of them just decide they're going to kill themselves because of the capital city riot now. Instead of insurrection, it's a riot now. Oh, I'm so overwhelmed as a law enforcement officer, I'm going to kill myself. That's brilliant. But hey, they didn't make it to court. ABC News here. 4 LA sheriff employees die by suicide within a 24-hour period. Getting into the article, 4 members of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department have died by suicide since Monday, according to a statement from the department. The officers whose names were not released out of privacy were 1 former and 3 current employees, the department said. Our LASD family has experienced a significant amount of loss and tragedies this year, Sheriff Robert Luna said. We're stunned to learn of these deaths, and it has sent shockwaves of emotions throughout the department as we try to cope with the loss of not just 1, but 4 beloved active and retired members of our department family. During trying times like these, it's important for personnel, regardless of rank or position, to check on the well-being of other colleagues and friends. Luna continued, I have the deepest concern for our employees' well-being as we urgently are exploring avenues to reduce work stress factors to support our employees' work and personal lives. The floor employees all died within 24 hours of each other. The Homicide Bureau is investigating all 4 deaths. This year alone, 83 law enforcement officers have died by suicide, according to the First Help a first responder suicide group. These tragic deaths highlight the complexity of mental health, on and on and on, talking about mental health now. But that's not my question, and that's not my point here. I think that's extremely suspicious, just like I think it's extremely suspicious, excuse me. And I believe it's 5, correct? Someone can look this up if they choose to. 5 capital city police officers who were present during the incident on January 6th committed suicide before being able to get to court. I want to know, did these 4 sheriff's employees know each other? And did they work together on a project at any point? That's my question. I think that's extremely suspicious. And Deanne says a kitten cam would be a great idea because YouTube loves that sort of thing. Nature Nerd says the police were suicided by the deep state to cover up a truth. It could be, and that's kind of what I'm asking here. Dragon says either someone made it look like suicide or they actually did it because something was going to be found out about them. There are also gangs within the police departments. This is beyond unusual. And Helta says, first thing a detective will tell you is that very little happens by coincidence. I say someone made this look like suicide. And again, that would be my question. And they don't investigate that all in these in the story or in any other story I read on the subject. They don't talk about it. They talk about, mental health and pressure and things like this, and how many police officers have committed suicide this year, which they said, I believe, was 83 law enforcement officers in various forms of law enforcement across the country have committed suicide this year. But 4 from the same department. I want to know if they knew each other, and I want to know if they worked on or are working on something tied together. I think that's extremely suspicious. But are they ever going to properly, fully investigate this? Who knows? Another one that I thought was interesting, going back, and was this during Waco? What was it? I'm trying to remember. There were 4 or 5 officers. I'll have to look it up. 4 or 5 officers who died by accident through friendly fire in an invasion, and they all worked together. I believe it was in Waco, but they were also together and were accidentally killed by friendly fire or something in another event, like a couple of years later. Let me see. Urban says chances are very slim that all 4 committed suicide within 24 hours. Not believable. Yeah, it's very suspicious. Prime Mover says don't be concerned about the suicides. It's what the Clintons would have wanted. Yeah, there you go. They were Hillaried. And Merv says check the pings. And Erikel says never forget the coroner's department is part of the gang to mop things nicely. And that very likely could be. I would like to see more on this story at some point in the future. It's kind of like how every single person, every single tech who was involved in researching the events at Waco, going back to that, looking at satellite footage and heat resonance footage and things like this, had a heart attack. I think it was like 6 people in a row had a heart attack who were doing an investigation of the FBI's handling of Waco. I saw a documentary on the subject. It's like, yeah, that happened. I believe that. And a couple of these guys were like in their late 30s, early 40s too. Now, one of my pet peeves is government wasting money, states especially, and it's happening in Georgia right now, wasting money on electric vehicles that don't freaking work. What's his name? Warnock has signed a contract to spend $5 billion in taxpayer money on electric school buses to protect children from diesel fumes. Never mind the fact that they're still driving on the highway, or they're still driving out in the open. They're still exposed to road fumes plus radiation from batteries now on buses that have to be replaced regularly. The reason that they use the old automatic diesel engine buses in school buses or for school bus purposes is because they're disposable after a certain number of miles. And when I worked for Durham, I believe it was 120,000 miles, the bus has to be replaced, and it reaches that number very quickly, very quickly. And then they sell the buses to South America, and they caravan them to South America with scheduled drivers to get rid of them. So those electric buses are going to have to be replaced very quickly. It's a money pit for buses that aren't really going to work very well. And we're seeing the same problem in New York here with snowplows. Who buys electric snowplows? Anarchy says, dead men tell no tales. That is right. That is correct. And all people's here, he says, the LA cops' suicides seem very similar to the suicides of the reporter Gary Webb, who exposed how the CIA brought drugs into ghettos via migrants to fund secret operations. And Eric Hill says over 250 people investigating the two towers all perished in different ways. And then he says many electric buses are catching fire. But this is New York, and this is the Washington Examiner. Excuse me. It says New York turns back to diesel, snow plows, and leaves electric vehicles behind. Who buys a diesel, effectively a deuce and a half, heavy capacity truck to plow snow in an eastern state? That's a bonehead idea in the first place, and probably a hell of a lot more expensive than the diesel trucks. Those electric vehicles of that size and capacity are very expensive. That's why the school buses cost the state of Georgia taxpayers $5 billion and will continue to cost them billions as those buses break down and get replaced. It says New York will rely on diesel-powered snowplows as opposed to electric ones this winter, halting its goal to put electric ones on the street after a failed testing period. 3 years ago, the New York Department of Sanitation ordered 7 electric rear-loader garbage trucks made by Mack LR Electric. The department has not been able to find electric trucks that are powerful enough to plow snow like the original diesel ones. Exactly what I just said. And if you've ever, anyone here in New England, and not all the time, because it has its off years, but man, the snow piles up fast and there's nowhere to freaking put it. And it's heavy as hell. That snow is freaking heavy, and it causes a lot of problems. It says here, each truck made by Mack costs more than $523,000 and was part of a long-term goal under the New York City Clean Fleet Transportation Plan to move toward a majority of clean energy versions by 2035, with emergency and specialized trucks totally converted to electric vehicles by 2040. In total, the electric vehicle trucks made up a small fraction of the department's fleet. As of December 2022, they have 2,100 garbage trucks and 6,000 total vehicles. The electric vehicle trial period failed to produce the desired results needed to move away from diesel snow plows. In our test of the non-diesel rear loaders, we found they could not plow the snow effectively. Commissioner of the New York Department of Sanitation, Jessica Tisch, said during a city council hearing in November 2022, per the New York Sun, we need them to go 12 hours. And so I do not see today, given the current state of the technology, a path forward to fully electrifying the rear loader portion of the fleet by 2040. Unbelievable. I just want to look something up here really quick. I'm curious to see how much an actual snowplow costs. If I can find one for sale here. and all I'm seeing are rental prices. I want to know how much it costs to actually buy one when they're spending more than $500,000 per truck. $500,000 a truck or more, actually, because what was the number again? It said $523,000 per electric truck. How much does a diesel snowplow cost? How much does a diesel snowplow cost? And I'm still getting rental prices. I guess I'll have to look that up another time because I don't want to waste too much time trying to find out what the normal expense is. I bet it's not more than $500,000. That's a lot of tax money getting thrown into that. A lot of tax money. And Anarchy says, have you ever heard the term designed obsolescence? Yeah, that's exactly what it is as far as the buses are concerned. Deanna says those electric buses will never win a bus race. And Nature Nerd says Waco, Texas was a terrible paranoid doomsday cult. The FBI fueled their fear, which was unfortunate. Yeah, they made it worse. Well, if I remember correctly, if I'm thinking of the right one, he went out of the door unarmed and they started shooting at him, and that's what triggered the whole thing. And he was like, oh, this is it. This is what they thought. Oh, shit, this is it. They're here to kill us. Seal up the doors and windows, get the guns. What else are they supposed to think? Helter says nobody in New York's government ever thought about maybe perhaps requiring a seller to demonstrate the suitability of a product before shelling out millions of taxpayer dollars. No kidding. Very well put, Helter. Nature Nerd says batteries stop working in the cold. It's stupid to have a battery powered in cold areas. Diesel does a lot better in cold temperatures. That's true too. And Erikel says history repeating. Remember, electric trolleys were eliminated and salvaged on an island in the early 20s. Well, they used electric trolleys in Boston because that's the whole Green Line when I was growing up was electric trolleys, but it's with the hanging cables. So it has a constant connection. It's not battery operated. Nothing electric as far as all of them, the blue line, the red line, the purple line, and the green line were all connected to an electric source. They didn't have batteries. Dragon says the contractor for the electric snowplows, who was almost certainly related to or giving kickbacks to the people who purchased them, made a ton of money. Another failed New York liberal experiment. No kidding. And I see Stuart has joined us today. Glad you could make it, Stuart. Garrett says, why do people keep saying electric is so clean? Usually you're just moving the smokestack somewhere else to the product chain. Exactly. Plus, what it takes to manufacture those oversized batteries and the fact that you cannot really recycle them or dispose of them properly. You're just making something else dirty, basically. At least with combustion engines, you know what's dirty and how to deal with it if you want to. Most places don't really bother. Cruising says if they're using a Ford F-150, probably about $150,000 with the plow. No, it would have to be a dump truck. It would have to be a dump truck. That's the size that they use. Maybe that's what I should have looked up. How much does a dump truck cost? A new dump truck will come in between 100 to 150,000. There you go. There it is. That's what I was looking for. Because it would, with the bin on the back, and it'll have like 10 wheels, 2 up front and 2 sets of duals in the back. And it's a dumper in the back because they're going to fill it up with rock salt, and they'll have a spreader attached to the back. And the additional components, the huge oversized plow hook on the front, because some of them are as high as 6 feet tall, and it has a slope in the front. Say $200,000 with the added components. Say about $200,000. So that's what I was looking for. I should have looked up dump truck, and I'll show it to you here. What I found. 100 to 150 with components, 150 to 200, as opposed to $535,000 for a truck that doesn't freaking work. They're going to spend damn near 3 times as much for the truck, and they can't get it to work. That's taxpayer money. They don't give a damn. Easy enough to spend someone else's money, ladies and gentlemen. Urban says, whenever the topic of electric vehicles, I'm always reminded of Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged, where there is a mystery to locate the mysterious engineer of a revolutionary new motor. And Flukeman says, do you see messages when people ask you to use a website? You miss it each time I ask. YouTube does remove messages. Anyone talks about it in the videos. If you put a link on here, I'll never see it because they will remove the link. They will remove that link. Armand says, what are some of the most unheard of agencies that do nothing? Oh, I'm sure you can get a lot of answers from that here. Inspector says, oh, he's talking to someone else. Excuse me. Merv says, we're going to need a lot more diesel generators. Yeah. Get one of those universal generators that you can pour liquor into. You know, you can, if you have straight liquor like tequila or something like that, you can pour it into some of those older trucks and they'll burn it without really much of a problem. And Loyal says, 42,000 for an electric commercial mower. Really? Cruising says, my mistake, the F450 and up you can get with a dump bed. So I was thinking that is the cheapest you'd get, that if you could set it up with a plow. Okay. No problem, Cruising. No problem. As we jump to the hill, and the hill is talking about the Gaza. It says, as Gaza burns, other countries are quietly, illegally dumping refugees. Are they? Haven't read this one. How much you want to bet they pick on Pakistan for throwing out all the Afghans? Now here we see a caravan. Looks like the back of a truck. It says, with the world's attention focused on the carnage in Israel and Gaza, there is an urgent need to protect civilians at risk of further forced displacement or mass expulsion. Unfortunately, others are seeing an opportunity to take or escalate drastic measures, such as mass refugee expulsions against unwanted groups in their own country. Why are they unwanted, the Hill? Why are they unwanted? Because they're there illegally, maybe? Because they cause trouble, maybe? The risk to long-standing refugee populations is protracted exile looks especially dire. The warning signs are clear in 4 places, though this by no means is an exhaustive list. First, in Pakistan. Hey, I called it. The Interior Ministry announced on October 3rd all unregistered Afghans, including many who have lived there for years, have to leave the country by November 1st. Broad calls by Pakistani officials for mass deportation coincided with an increase in harassment, assault, and arbitrary detention of Afghans, the deadline for voluntary return having passed last week. Pakistani police are now going house to house, rounding up Afghans and deporting them in the thousands. Yeah, and again, you're saying unregistered Afghans. Wording, folks, always important. The Hill says unregistered Afghans. Pakistan says illegal immigrants. You people have been here, some of you for years, sure, but you've never tried to become a citizen. You've never turned yourself in. You've never registered yourself. Get the hell out. Get the hell out. You start fights. You start fires. You throw rocks. You throw Molotov cocktails. You got suicide bombings going on. That's really what pushed them over the edge, was a record number of suicide bombings this year. They said, all right, get the hell out of here. We're done. I can't fault them for trying to protect their people. And there they go. It says about 1.7 million Afghans live in Pakistan without legal status. That's the problem. In addition to some 1.3 million registered Afghan refugees. The 1.3 million registered Afghan refugees are not the ones Pakistan has the problem with. It's the 1.7 illegal ones that they're having the problem with. And it goes on here. Second, in Turkey, on multiple occasions, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has expressed his desire to resettle more than 1 million Syrian refugees into a Turkish-occupied so-called safe zone in northern Syria. So he wants to throw out the Syrians. Hasn't done it yet, as far as I know, but he wants the Syrians out of his country. Basically, this is an article trying to demonize these countries for being fed up with illegal immigrants and wanting them to leave because it's a burden on their citizens. Third, in the Dominican Republic, the authorities closed the border with Haiti on September 14th in a dispute over the construction of a canal. Although there are many indications the dispute is wider than water resources. When haven't they been at odds with each other? They closed the border, so what? And then fourth, in Lebanon, host to the largest number of refugees per capita of any country in the world, the government has in recent months targeted thousands of Syrians who lack legal status for deportation. We have found that many of those previously returned experienced detention, torture, and forced conscription. Lebanon has banned the UN Refugee Agency from registering Syrian refugees, and currently only 17% of Syrian refugees hold legal residency. So they are host to the largest number of refugees, and they're mostly apparently Syrians who don't have legal status, and Lebanon wants them to leave. Is any of this illegal? Because that's what the article implies. The Hill, again, as Gaza burns, other countries are quietly, what? Illegally dumping refugees. Are they illegally dumping refugees, or are they repatriating illegal immigrants that are causing problems in their country? What's the answer here? What's the answer here? As I get back to this, I'll close out. I opened a dialog box by accident. I got it. As I get back into some of these comments really quickly, Deanna says, saw a news article in New England that they're having trouble finding drivers and will be renting snow plowing equipment. Wow. They probably fired half of them for refusing to take the jab. Urban says, not sure which unheard of agencies are doing nothing, but the Ministry of Truth has certainly been working overtime. Yeah. Nature Nerd says, it's funny how electric car owners now carry generators in their car to charge their cars. Defeats the purpose of electric. Good point. Loyal Tangi. I do commercial landscape in California. In 2024, they will ban gas mower sales. The large gas models are now $14,000. Wow. And Nature Nerd says Middle Eastern countries don't take Palestinian refugees because they've repeatedly destabilized every country they've gone to, like in America, like Jordan and Lebanon, which means the West will take them in. Yeah, there you go. Like America, like Germany, like Spain, like Italy, like the United Kingdom. Yeah, flood them into the United Kingdom. That's a great idea. They do destabilize things because they don't integrate into the society. Hell, they don't even try to get legal status. So what's the point? And I think they should be repatriated. I'm sorry. People can give me a hard time about that. I've been called racist for saying that. Well, if that's what you think, tough. Let them into your yard. Let them set up tents in your backyard. Let them sleep on your fire escape. Sven says electric cars are very bad for the environment before and after building them. And Cruising says, want to go into the business of running black market lawnmowers into California next month? Oh, I'm sure they'll catch you and give you a ticket. And Loyal says the replacement is $42,000 and you need 3 battery packs for a day's use. Youch. That's just going to run you out of business. Again, this article, very left-leaning article, trying to make it sound like it's illegal. It's not illegal if that country signs it into law that they're going to enforce their border policies and repatriate people that are in their countries illegally. That is not against the law. The UN may not like it, but that's tough. Tough monkeys, as I've heard it said. Tough monkeys. Some of you probably aren't old enough to remember that one. And speaking of the Gaza, we're going to go to France. We're going to go to France because God knows half the Palestinians are probably in France already. And this is from the Associated Press. This is concerning. France blames Russia for a digital effort to whip up online controversy over stars of David graffiti. I don't know what this article is going to get into, but this is very troubling right here. Paris. France says it has been the target of a Russian online destabilization campaign that used automated social media accounts to whip up controversy and confusion about spray painted stars of David that appeared on Paris streets and fed alarm about surging anti Semitism in France during the Israeli Hamas war. The 250 or so quickly erased blue stars are now the subject of French police investigations seeking to determine whether the graffiti was anti-Semitic, as Paris police chief and others initially suspected, or if they were organized from outside France. The stars' stencilings on walls in Paris and in suburbs last month quickly formed debate and alarm on social media and concerns about the safety of France's Jewish community, the largest in Europe. Since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, triggering the latest and deadliest war, French authorities have counted more than 1,150 anti-Semitic acts, nearly 3 times more than all acts against French Jews in 2022. In a statement Thursday evening, France's foreign ministry pointed a finger of blame at Russia, saying a Russian network of bots whipped up controversy about the stars with thousands of posts on X, the platform previously known as Twitter. Bots are automated accounts programmed to mimic human users by generating messages or following users on social media, blah, blah, blah. I think we all know what bots are. But this is very concerning because this is very indicative of what happened in Nazi Germany in that time period when they started moving towards the Jewish population, when they got rid of all of the people from the Middle East and they got rid of all of the homosexuals and they started getting rid of people with disabilities and they moved in on the Jewish population. People forget they did all that. They started moving in on the Hebrew population and they marked their homes and businesses. And this was a situation where homes and businesses were marked with a blue star. And for people, especially when you're talking about France that was formerly occupied by the Nazis in World War II, that's extremely concerning. That's an extremely concerning thing because it's like, okay, was this done because there's enough Palestinians already in France that they're going to find those homes based on those stars and target them? That was the question. And it's a legitimate question. And whether or not Russia is trying to stir something up or not, I have no idea. But that is concerning. Getting on with this here, back to the comments. Loyal says also theft of the equipment will go through the roof, probably at gunpoint, as a trailer full of the stuff would be worth $100,000. Wow, yeah, that's a good point, Loyal. Talking about the lawnmower equipment again. Chris says even if you get caught selling gas mowers in California, they just let you go like any other criminal. Oh no, that's environment. They'll have environmental police by then, and they'll give you tickets for emissions. Nature Nerd says Syria is a rogue terrorist state, basically. Urban says it's all fun and graffiti games until they force you to wear the armband. Yeah. And Helter says, reminds me of those guys with Russian accents aggressively destroying a street in Paris during Galette Jaune confrontations a few years ago. But yeah, that's a very concerning thing. And it is painting a target on those homes and businesses of the people that live in those areas. And that's something that they should be looking into, given especially France's history with Germany. France's history of rolling over. And that's something a lot of people aren't even aware of, is how easily. This is a good example. If you're into the prepping and you want to talk about how easy it is to get people to roll over. We saw a great example of this during the C virus pandemic, when people lined up to get the jab for a free cup of coffee, when people were wearing double masks, people are yelling at you for not having gloves on. People rolled over and just sucked it up without knowing what was up and what was down, right? In occupied France, people were ordered by the German government. Look this up, please do. Ordered by the German government to turn in their bicycles to their local constabularies, their local police departments, because the police were working in cooperation with German officials after the occupation. The gendarmes basically just knuckled under and allowed themselves to be directed by the Gestapo. Turn in your bicycles so that you have to stay in your neighborhoods. Everybody turned in their bikes. Turn in your radios because we don't want you to get misinformation from the enemy. Turn them into your local police stations. The police stations were full of radios because people turned them in. They gave up. Never forget that. Never forget that the police knuckled under and sided with the enemy, and that the people were such sheep, they surrendered bicycles and frickin' radios. And you think your sheriff's office is going to stand up for you? You think your local law enforcement or your National Guardsmen are going to sit there and say, oh, I'll never go against the Constitution. Oh, no, I took an oath. You really think your friends and neighbors won't sell you out? Just think about that. Let that sink in for a minute. Sven says no guns are illegal in California, so criminals won't use them. Weed whacker kid. Yeah. And Risky Krisky says, love your content. Been subbed for years. Keep up the hard work. I appreciate that, Risky. Where are you subbed at? Or is it on Prepper University or Coffee Talk? And Gary says, before the war, a lot of Europeans from many countries actually supported the Nazis. Yeah, they supported them until they saw what was going on. And by then it was too late. Then it was like, now what do I do? Because people always ask that. Why didn't you do something? What do you want me to do? Well, I'll take a stand, and then 500 people will show up in front of my house with guns. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to take a stand. Once you're in deep enough, you're kind of screwed. Chris says, I bought a French surplus rifle, said it was just dropped once. There you go. Napoleon aside, the only time France has ever won anything is when it defeated itself during the French Revolution. Sorry, if you're from France, I can't help it. I'm picking on you. Napoleon was brilliant, though, but he stretched himself too thin. Risky says Prepper University. Okay. Hanging on by a thread at Prepper University. It's a shame what they've done over there, what YouTube has done to that channel. Urban says Canadian Parliament still seems to support Ukrainian Nazis up to and including 2 standing ovations. Yeah, I remember. We talked about that a few weeks back. And Risky said, shared the video on bulletproofing your home on one of my videos a few weeks back. Yeah, that was a popular one back when I was still getting views. Now I can't get 500 views on a video. It's sickening. Speaking of the National Guard, and I'll just say hello to one more person. It says Tom E is here. Tom E popped in. Oh, Chris, that's a shame. He says Napoleon came up short. You know that was propaganda, right? From the British. British nationally were taller than French. From the perspective of Frenchmen in that time period, he wasn't really that short. He really wasn't short. Most Frenchmen were shorter than like 5'8" during that period in the 1800s. So he really wasn't short. Nature Nerd says most French don't roll over. Only those in power do occasionally. France has won more wars than any other country throughout its history, and they have more riots and protests than anyone. Yeah, but it's easy to pick on them. Anyways, as we move along here, they do get picked on a lot, though. Honestly, I'm sitting here doing it. I don't really have anything against France, although their government is a disaster. GB News. Texas National Guard takes matters into their own hands as Biden blasted for migration failure. Essentially, and you're going to be seeing a lot of this, the Texas governor is breaking away from the mandates of the federal government and basically snubbing his nose at Biden and saying, all right, I'm sick and tired of you. I don't care what your federal mandates are. I'm going to do what needs to be done. And Urban says Napoleon was 5'6". See? And that was like of average height in France in the 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. So that was just because more British people tended to be a little taller. So they wanted to make it sound like he was a dwarf, and it wasn't true. Here you see the National Guard blocking people trying to get out of the river here. In the photo, I'll leave that there for another second so you can soak it in. It says the Texas National Guard has taken matters into its own hands as Joe Biden comes under increased criticism for the ongoing migrant crisis. Republican Governor Greg Abbott shared footage showing members of the Lone Star State's military working late into the night to tackle the problem. So they're actually repelling people now instead of just doing paperwork like they are in New York. Camouflage-clad men and women clutching riot shields approaching dozens of migrants emerging from the water. Abbott said Texas National Guard soldiers continue to deter and turn back illegal immigrants attempting to enter Texas. With Biden refusing to secure the border, Texas holds the line. An increased number of migrants crossing the southwest border has renewed political pressure on the 46th president. A recent opinion poll, I could give a shit about an opinion poll, but I'll read it, suggests Americans remain convinced former Commander-in-Chief Donald Trump, who pledged to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, remains better suited to deal with the crisis. That I do agree with, though. Despite facing a number of legal obstacles, the 77-year-old property tycoon turned politician is also ahead of his successor in swing states such as Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan. I bet he is, because 81 million votes, folks. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how that happened. At personal risk of getting in trouble on the channel and saying anything further, I'm sure you already know. I just don't buy it. There have been a total of 2,475,669 encounters on the southwest land border from October 2022 to September 2023. The figure is marginally above the 2,378,944 encounters recorded over the same period in the previous 12 months. That's 5 million encounters, 5 million people they did paperwork on at the southern border during the Biden administration. 5 million. 5 million. Or just a hair under 5 million. That's the ones that they caught. And that's not counting the encounters at the northern border or how many people are coming across the north. Biden's finding himself in political hot water over the issue, with Democrat mayors in Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, and New York heaping pressure on the 80-year-old. All they want is more money. That's all they want. You know, I don't care what the hell they say. They're the ones that brought this on all of us. It says we have employees who desperately want to hire. What happened? It split. I'm sorry. The crisis is we have folks here who desperately want to work, Denver Mayor Mike Johnson whined to the Associated Press. I added the wine. He brought the cheese. And we have employees who are desperately wanting to hire them. They don't want to hire any citizens who actually live in Denver. They want migrants, apparently. And we have a federal government that's standing in the way of employers who want to hire employees who want to work. Oh, I can hear the teardrops hitting the mattress. Oh, my God. Oh, geez. Gary says Washington keeps making Texit sound like a viable option. Well, any state reserves the right to annex itself from the United States government as a whole and declare itself an independent nation. But we all saw what happened the last time that was attempted, and that would be the Civil War. That would be the Civil War. Flukeman says many vegan activities don't like pet owners. Give it another 10 years, YouTube probably ban cat videos. Yeah, no kidding. They're not my pets. They are my friends and my companions. My cat and dog friends I take care of. Oh, I don't have a dog here now. It's been a while, actually. And Raccoon Eyes is here. Glad you could make it. Urban says, have we talked about Trump hinting that Tucker Carlson may be a good choice for VP? I have not heard that. I don't think I've heard that. That would be interesting, though. He's popular enough. That's all you need, because mostly vice presidents don't do much. Just ask Kamala. All people say, oh, Kamala did all her work before becoming vice president. That's how she got the job. She's got she's got the mattress stains to prove it. Oh no, I gotta shut down. I'm in trouble now. All people says many military and local police units, migrants that were given citizenship in exchange for joining have no care of the Constitution or citizens' rights and will obey orders and shoot on command. So will natural born citizens, though, all people. So will natural born citizens. So I mean, you took an oath, and I don't care about that. I hear that all the time. They took an oath of office. They owe this and that. They don't know a damn thing. They took an oath of office. Sure, it's words. They spoke words to get a job. They probably can't even remember them. Yeah, Raccoon Eye says heels up Harris. There it is, folks. But that's Texas taking matters into their own hands and going a step beyond that. As I'll open up this next one real quick here. Going a step beyond that, because he's got the National Guard out. And again, instead of processing them with paperwork, actually repelling them, which is what they should be doing. The Hill again. Texas Senate passes measure making it illegal for illegal border crossing a state crime. Because, again, the Biden administration undid that so that they would not be able to expatriate those people. And that's, I believe, the direction that Abbott is moving into, being able to just en masse expatriate these people as they come into the country now. Get the hell out of here. The Texas Senate fast-tracked 2 measures Thursday to broaden the state's jurisdiction over immigration enforcement. The bills, one which would make crossing the border from Mexico into Texas a crime, and the other would appropriate more than $1.5 billion for border enforcement, crossed the chamber's finish line just 2 days after the beginning of special legislative session. Now, I hate it when they spend taxpayer money in bulk. Now, they want $1.5 billion for border enforcement. But if they spend $1.5 billion on border enforcement, they won't need to spend, I believe it was something like $6 billion on processing, because they won't be here. And that'll actually save taxpayers a few bucks. The quick legislative action came as the Senate suspended its standard rules of procedure, according to a report by Texas Public Radio. The state criminalization of unauthorized border crossings is controversial, both because the federal government is generally understood to have sole constitutional authority over immigration enforcement, and because policing those crimes can lead to abuses. Oh, and by the way, if Governor Abbott wants to ever try to annex Texas, he better get rid of those wind farms because they're unreliable. The Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy in 2018 led to the separation of more than 2,000 children from their parents. And the process to reunite families is ongoing. Don't tell me that 2,000 children were separated from their parents, but in another article tell me that thousands of children crossed the border by themselves with no parent. Okay? Don't tell me that. They're already separated from the parents. They've been separated from for months, years even. Opponents of the Texas bill say the potential for abuse can also affect U.S. citizens. My fear is these new state offenses are going to have a chilling effect on our state, a state that is a minority majority, 41% Latino. State Senator Cesar Blanco, a Democrat, said on the Senate floor in opposition to the bill. He then curled up in a ball and whimpered and sucked his thumb and held tightly to his little teddy bear. How many kids and adults are we going to risk wrongfully being deported or wrongfully being detained? That's what our families, that's what our communities along the border and across Texas, that's what they're worried about, said Blanco, who opened his speech with criticism of the federal government for not doing its job on the border. Well, how many illegal immigrants that are criminals and drug dealers and terrorists and rapists and murderers and God knows what, running from the police or coming here to cause criminal mischief, are we supposed to tolerate, Blanco? How many? Because they're not being processed at all. As I catch up a couple more comments here really quickly. Nature Nerd says lukewarm voters only vote in 4-year main elections and not off-year elections like 2023 or 2021. Urban says, according to The Hill and others, Trump said he'd consider Tucker Carlson for VP because he's got great common sense. Fair enough. Urban says border enforcement will not be possible until Trump is back in office. Well, Governor Abbott is bucking the system hard. He's bucking the system hard. And and pushing back. And I can't blame them because they're suffering down there. That's why they've been busing them out of the state. You want them so bad, you take them, New York. You take them, Denver. Good luck. And you see what it's doing. And their complaints are they want more money. They want more. They always want more of your tax money. And Prime Mover says everyone who goes to jail is separated from their children. Exactly. But with that, we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live if you're looking for me on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, or at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio. Find me on fistfulofradio.com. Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Friday at noon if you care to look for me there, or on X if you use it. It has cleaned up quite a bit since Musk took over, though. I'll give it that much. So thank you to everybody who was able to join us this afternoon. I hope you got something out of the conversation, and have a good weekend. Please do. Hope you do. And we will do this again on Monday.